Stay a bit longer.
This is where she used to stay. When she was around, she used to plant coffee and she used to plant the Arabica.
Yeah.
This is what she used to plant.
This one?
Yeah. So in Kenya, you can only plant two types of coffee. That's the Arabica and Robusta. For her, she used to plant the Robusta. The Arabica. This is the Robusta.
Yep.
Yeah. So maybe we can have a sit somewhere and get to talk about. So we can have a sit somewhere and then I'll give you the history, the background of the house, how the house became a museum, so that we can start our tour. Studies in Paris, where she enhanced also in art and literature, and then she later, in 1913, she accepted marriage proposal from a half Swedish cousin called Baron von Blixer. Afterwards, Baron was advised by a mutual uncle of theirs to come to British East Africa and do coffee farming, which he came and started doing coffee. He settled in a 700 acres of land that was eventually bought by his family and Karen's family. But after getting there, he was advised by a friend if he was to become a millionaire, he should venture into coffee farming instead of cattle farming. And that, just like that, changed his mind, started doing coffee farming, and had begun by selling the 700 acres of land and came and bought 4,500 acres here in Nairobi. So that was in the late 1913. So in 1914, Karen joined him and they did their wedding the following day after she arrived. They went for their honeymoon in Lake Naivasha at an island called Crescent Island. Afterwards, they came back, rented an apartment where they stayed for 3 years. And in those 3 years, Karen's coffee farm had already developed. So Karen later bought the house and 1,500 acres of land, became a total of 6,000 acres. They moved in and in 1917, and Baron realized he's not becoming a millionaire as he expected, so he was less interested in coffee, left Karen to take care of the 6,000 acres, and he went to do safari hunts. So when Karen was left behind, she divided the 6,000 acres into 4. The frontal part of the house was 600 acres, only for tree plantation. Behind the house was 2,000 acres, only for the grazing field. This other side was 2,400 acres, only for tree plantation. She gifted the locals 1,000 acres for them to live. So all was going on well until in 1921, Baron completely moved out of the house. They got divorced in 1925. So Karen could get lonely at times, so she used to go to the Muthaiga Country Club that was owned by her friend called Buckley Cole, and that's where he was introduced to a very successful businessman called Dennis Finch-Hatton. He was not only a successful businessman, he also used to venture into real estate. He used to do hunting, specifically the elephants, and he also used to do ventured in real estate. He was a professional pilot, a successful businessman who also used to do hunting. So they moved in with Karen, but we really can't say he used to stay with Karen because he used to fly a lot. But anytime when he was in Nairobi, they could come stay with Karen, they could go fly together. And Karen says that was one of her best moments because she could take some time off from thinking about the farm and just get to have fun with the love of her life. So all was going on well until in 1931. When Karen faced a lot of difficulties, it began by her coffee farm. She went up to a 90% loss in the coffee farm. She found out the ex-husband, Baron, had infected her with syphilis, so she needed medical treatment, which she could only get that back in Denmark. And after that, she was left with no option but to sell the house and the 6,000 acres, which she sold it to the Richardson and Martins Limited. And after that, shortly before she left, Dennis Finch-Hatton got in a plane crash in Voi and died. So Karen made sure he was buried at his place of choice, which was in the Ngong Hills. That's where he was buried, and then he went back. And then he went back to Denmark in 1931. So after he went back to Denmark, he fully concentrated in her literature work. He was able to write 11 books, and she published 10 of them. Her last book, The Barbet Feast, was published by her family in 1963 after her death in 1962. But remember, the main purpose of her going back to Denmark was to get the syphilis treatment, which she did. She got treated of the syphilis. Unfortunately, they used mercury to treat her. So that was like treating an infection with a poison, which consumed her bones, but it bought her more time, for around 40 more years. but it was years of pain because by the time she was dying, she was only 33 kgs. She had to use 3 pseudonyms when she was publishing the 10 books. That was Isaac, Tanya, and Pierre. We are going to see some of the book inside with the name. Babette Feast was the only book that was written under Karen's name, but it was published by her family. She had to go all the way to the United States because in Europe there was no author wanting to take a look at her work. So for the background of the house was built from 1911 and 1912 by a Swedish architect called Jogren. Maybe you can continue the tour as I tell you about the story.
Yes, of course.
Okay, so for the house, it was built from 1911 to 1912 by a Swedish architect called Jogren. Jogren had also come to British East Africa to do coffee farming, which also failed. Reason is because this place is not suitable for coffee farming. So even when someone today plans to do coffee, it is still bound to fail.
Yep.
So this is a 1922 Fordson tractor model F. She used it to navigate through the farm, and it took her almost 6 days to navigate through the whole of the 600 acres. The special wheels made it possible for her not to get stuck on mud. We have the ox wagons. The ox wagons are used to transport coffee beans from Karen's farm all the way to Nairobi railway station, which took 6 hours. They used to pack 12 sacks of coffee beans in tons. Yeah. We have the farrow plows. The farrow plows were used to prepare land. Each farrow plow used 6 to 10 oxen, depending on how new or hard the land was. That's the house. So for the house, it was Jogren's farm also failed as Karen's because of the climate condition. So I don't know if you can see the Ngong Hills.
Yes, of course, I can see it.
Yeah, so those were Karen's favorite.
Cactus growing out of it.
Oh, and then there's another one.
Yes, it was out of it. It was on that one over there.
So for Lloyd stayed till his death in 1954. After he died, his daughter was left behind, and she stayed for 5 years. So here we have a structure of the 6,000 acres of map. Here is where we are right now, called the Bogani House.
Yeah.
Yep. And this is the house where she lived for the 3 years before moving in here. This was the coffee farm right in front of the house, separated by the Karen Road. This is the school. So when she was around, she built a school for the 200 families. So here it is. The landing field and taking off of Dennis, which is now the Giraffe Center. They had to build a dam because sometimes they faced drought. They needed water for the cattle to have water to drink. Those are the Ngong Hills. Ngong Hills is a Maasai word meaning knuckles. Yeah, so she used to attend the St. Francis Church. This is the way to Dennis Finch Hatton's grave. Yeah, so on the other side, we have the portraits of Karen portraying the woman who changed the world. Over here, she was a lady of the world, worldly wise. And the last one, she was dressed like a French artist called Pihot. And here we have an activity where you get to pick a pin according to your age, and then you pin it on the map from where you come from. Okay.
Good.
So here we have a portrait painting of Karen of a boy called Abdullah. Abdullah was the most intelligent boy in the farm, and he used to challenge Dennis into playing chess, and he could actually defeat Dennis. He used to be Karen's farm accountant, and he had never attended any accounting classes. So Karen saw the potential in him, took him to Mombasa where he studied law for 3 years, and went back to his homeland in Somali where he became one of the first judges.
Wow.
This is Karen and her dog Dusk. Dusk was a wedding gift from Baron to her. Over here, we also have a painting of Karen or a lady called Njeri. Njeri was the most beautiful girl in the farm, and her family received the highest bride prize of 250 goats and a pot full of honey. She was married to the Maasais because the Maasais was the community that could afford her bride prize. Yep. So now head to the house. Let's go to the washroom. Over here we have a wild dead palm tree planted by Karen in 1917.
This one?
Yes. The year she moved into this house, she planted it as one seedling, later sprouted into 8 stems. The 4 stems had to be cut because they were leaning on the house. It has a lifespan of 100 years and it's already 150 years. and it's already 109. That's how it used to look before it was cut. The first stems were cut. And she had bought the seedling in a botanical garden in Durban, South Africa. So if you have a ticket with you, you can present it. So this is the kitchen. The kitchen had to be built separate from the main house to reduce fire incidents and also smoke. So that was her pantry. The moment you get inside the house, you feel the temperature has changed. It's a bit cooler because of the storage of food. Here is where they used to store the food. It acted like their refrigerator. This was her mahogany dish dryer where he used to hang the dishes for them to dry. And here we have a picture of Kamante Karen's chef, the one who prepared the meal you read on the dining. This was a cast iron Dover stove used for ironing, for baking and cooking. It was really hard to light it on, so they had to make sure it completely never goes off. The water filter, they used the charcoal medicino to treat the water. Glass butter churner used to separate butter from milk. She had two sinks, the ceramic and the wooden sink. The ceramic sink was to wash the non-delicate utensils. The wooden sink was to wash the delicate utensils. Here we have some of her utensils. We have the spatula, the fork, bottle cleaner, a strainer, knife sharpener, butter spreader, spice and salt shaker, meat grinder, two coffee grinder, a weighing scale, a mortar and a pestle, coffee kettle, a whisk, a rolling pin, a pot, ceramic cereals jar, a tea kettle, wooden socks dryers because the socks are made from wood, so after being washed they could shrink. They needed to put them on when they dry so that they would maintain the shape. So from here all the way, it was built later for the matron to have an easier access to the house, to the school from the house, the Karen's Women's College, but right now it's a medical institution for both girls and boys. The oldest tree in the museum, Nandi Flame, which is 121 years, and it has a lifespan of up to 200 years. And this is the back view of the house. She went all the way to Bombay, India to import the millstones. She wanted the hardest stone that she could get. So she could sit outside here when she was administering first aid to the locals, when she was taking her last cup of coffee before heading to bed, when she was smoking. She could sit on one side and Ireri, the guy we saw in the painting, on the other side, and they could get to settle disputes and matters about the farm. Yeah. So this is an Italian cypress tree planted in 1931, marking the year Karen left, and a difference between a 95-year-old tree and a 15-year-old tree.
This is 15 years old?
Yeah.
Come on.
Takes quite a long time to grow because it grows both outside and in the roots.
Relatively speaking, fair number of them I think
So now we are heading to the nature trail to see the coffee drying machine before we finish our tour. I hope it's not past 5:30. What is it?
1700.
Oh. Steam coffee. So this is a huffing machine where the coffee beans used to separate, where it used to separate the coffee berries and the husk, and then deposited them there. And then that was a vertical steam chamber. So it had two layers. The lower layer had firewood, the upper layer had water. So the firewood could boil the water, and then through the vent all the way it could transport the steam on the other side, where the steam could now be steamed. The whole process took 24 hours. That's the engine. And for the whole process to start, it had to be jump start using the Fordson tractor, the one that we saw when we were beginning our tour. Yeah, so the whole process took 24 hours. Then after that, it was sun-dried for 2, 3, 4 days, depending on the climate that day, packed in sacks, put on the ox wagons that we saw when we were starting our tour, transport them from here all the way to Nairobi railway station. From Nairobi to Mombasa, it took, from here to Nairobi railway station, it took 6 hours. From Nairobi railway station to Mombasa, it took 3 days. From Mombasa all the way to Europe, it took 6 months. And then after getting to Europe, specifically in London, that's where it was roasted and then ready for consumption and to be supplied. These are some of coffee trees which have not yet matured. So a single coffee tree takes 3 to 5 years. These are the Arabica, that's the Robusta. Yeah. Yes, that one was broken by a monkey. Yeah, so any question about the Fordson tractor?
Yes,